So today being Rosh Chodesh Adar, Aleph, so we now have 2 full months ahead of us of Adar, which means about 6 weeks till Purim. So we're going to start the Chassidish preparation for Purim by learning a Maamar of the Rebbe. This Maamar was said on Purim, Tafshin Mem Daled, 1984, and was edited and published. And it covers a very wide range of fascinating ideas around Purim and beyond. So it starts with the quote from the Megillah. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed. Which night was that? At which point of the Megillah did this happen, that the sleep was disturbed, the king's sleep?
Before it started to go down.
Yes, that this was on the night between the 2 meals that Esther made for Haman and Achashverosh, where Esther, so the decree against the Jews had been made. Esther had gone into the king and said, I need to make a request, come to a feast. She invited Haman as well. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed. And so he asked for the Sefer Zichronos, the book of notes of the royal chronicles, to be read to him. And it was noted that Mordechai had saved his life and hadn't been rewarded for it. And so the king asked Haman, who was coming, to ask if he could hang Mordechai on the gallows. Haman walks in and the king asks him, what should I do for somebody who I am happy with? And Haman thought it was him, and so he said that he should ride on the king's horse, etc., etc. And this was the beginning of the downturn for Haman and the salvation for the Jewish people. That's the pasuk. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed. So the Friedrich Rebbe said a Maamar, which actually was the first Maamar that he said when he moved to America in 1940. Purim 1940. So in the Friedrich Rebbe's Maamar, he says, the Isaba Minhagim Maharil. It says in the collection of Minhagim of the Maharil. The Maharil was a very early German halachic authority. So in the Minhagim of the Maharil, it says that when you're reading the Megillah and you reach this point, it's the 6th chapter of the Megillah, where you read that on this night the king's sleep was disturbed. The reader has to lift his voice, go up an octave, be loud, like make a big deal out of it. Why? Because this is the main miracle. This is the main miracle. What's the main miracle? That the king couldn't sleep. That's the main miracle. The king couldn't sleep. Kings sleep well. Here's a king who couldn't sleep after a party. Okay, so in brackets it explains what waking up is not a miracle. If that, then they were all miraculous people. Where if you can't sleep at night, or you get a sleepless night or disturbed. What's yeah? If we made a yontif for every time we couldn't sleep, then so in the brackets the Rebbe explains the mibalayla hu haschalas takfa shalnes. That, paraphrasing from the Gemara Megillah, from the point of Balayla Hu, the real power, the real impact of the miracle started happening. As we said, because that was the turning point in the story, was until this point, it's just bad news. So it's all bad news. And then from here on, things start to turn into positive. Haman has a bit of a disgrace, a downfall, and everything turns around for the Yidden. So, in other words, when the Maharil says that this is the Ikar Hanes, the main miracle is that the king couldn't sleep. Well, that's not the miracle. The miracle is, from that moment, things started to turn around. And the fact that he couldn't sleep, which led him to listen to the reading of the Chronicles, which made him realize that Mordechai needed to be rewarded, it led to things happening. So, is the miracle that the king couldn't sleep? Is that the Ikar Hanes? Or it's the timing of the miracle started with that. In other words, had he had a good sleep that night, so then that wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have had this realization of wanting to reward Mordechai, and things wouldn't have happened in that way. The fact that he woke up that night, he couldn't sleep, he was disturbed, that was the beginning of the miracle.
Wasn't it that Hashem thought my children, Bnei Israel, are suffering, and this Rosh is having a peaceful night's sleep, so Hashem
Why should he sleep well?
Yeah.
Okay. So, even if we say that, okay, we're not talking about him waking up being a miracle, we're saying that the timing of that's when things started to turn around. The Friedrich Rebbe in his Maamar, after quoting this from the Maharil, says, he asked the following question. Surely the real miracle started when Esther begged for her people and said that me and my nation have been sold, we've been rejected, we're under threat. Surely that was the beginning of when things really turned around. Had she not done that, had she not made that plea to Achashverosh, so then nothing would happen. Just because Mordechai was rewarded for saving the king's life, that wouldn't have been enough. So surely that's the moment, the real moment of turnaround, the moment when Achashverosh heard that Esther is Jewish and it's her nation that's being threatened. And he said, who would dare do such a thing? And Haman was pointed out, and that's when things really changed. So why would the Maharil say that the Ikra Nes was when the king woke up in the middle of the night? Surely it was the moment when Esther pled her in front of the king. That was when it really started happening. In fact, you could say even before that, V'chein ha'achonos, it says brackets, V'chein ha'achonos she'asa lifnei zeh, the preparations she made before going into the king. Lech k'noises kol Yehudim, she told Mordechai, gather all the Jewish people, they should fast for 3 days. So the Tzumah, they should fast on her behalf. That's when things started to turn around, when the Jewish people were aroused to do tshuva and to call out to Hashem. Surely that's the turning point in the story, not the king waking up in the middle of the night. So why the emphasis on that moment?
Also, after that moment, when he woke up, what he decided to do while he was awake, to read, I'm not sure the word, but to read that and to find that information, that's not the most obvious thing to do when you can't sleep. So it was also...
Correct. So every step of the way is a miracle, and that's what the whole Megillah is. That each step that it punkt happened this way and that way. He woke up that night and he read that, and that was when Haman was coming. Every single detail, you're right, is miraculous. Here we're trying to say, so where's the turning point? Like, you're not going to say that the miracle was that Haman made a decree to destroy the Jewish people. That was the bad news. That was the problem. So when did the problem start turning around? So says the Maharil, when the king couldn't sleep. But surely it was when the Jewish people started screaming out to Hashem and they were fasting in preparation for Esther to come in to face the king. That's the real turnaround. Incidentally, as a part of the preparation, as a help to it, the king couldn't sleep. He was happy with Mordechai. That maybe helped, but is that the turning point? And yet, v'kan omer de'ikar v'toikef hanes hu mashe nodash nas hamelech. Here it says that the real main miracle, the power, the emphasis, the impact of the miracle, is the moment that the king couldn't sleep. And that's when we raise our voice. And that's what we do till today. We raise our voice in the Megillah at that point. There must be something more about this king not sleeping. There must be something lying beneath that. So the Friedrich Rebbe brings an explanation. He quotes the Medrash, the Yalkut, that says, says the Medrash, on that night the king's sleep was disturbed, is referring to the king of the world, Hashem. And indeed, it says in the Medrash that you can read the whole Megillah that way. Whenever it says Hamelech, it's talking about the ultimate king. And here the Yalkut says the king's sleep was disturbed is talking about the king of the world, Hashem himself. So that's why this is the real miracle is happening now, because Hashem is waking up. That's the turning point. That's the real Tokef Hanes. That's the real moment of this story. And of course, the Medrash says, "V'chishini yesh lefanav." 1 second, Hashem sleeps, that he has to wake up. Where does that come from? How can you describe Hashem as sleeping in the first place? To say that he woke up. So answers the Medrash, Elo kish Yisrael choitim oisa atzma ki yashin. That when the Jewish people sin, Hashem makes himself like he's sleeping. But when we do his will, then he does not slumber or sleep. Like it says in the Pasuk, that Hashem never sleeps. Okay, so the Friedrich Rebbe, quoting the Medrash, has sorted out the first question. How can we say that this is the turning point of the miracle when the king's sleep was disturbed? Why is that the moment? Because the Medrash says, who's the king? The king is Hashem. Hashem's sleep was disturbed. Hashem woke up. And that is the real turning point, when Hashem wakes up. The Medrash says, what do you mean Hashem sleeps, so he has to wake up? When we sin, Hashem makes himself like he's sleeping. And when we do his will, he wakes up. Hang on a second. Did we answer the question? Like, does Hashem sleep? Does Hashem sleep? Yes, if we sin, he sleeps. That didn't answer the question. Like, what does it mean that Hashem sleeps? Or even makes himself like he's sleeping. What does that actually mean? How's it possible? So this the Rebbe now explains. What is the divine slumber? What does it mean Hashem sleeping? And therefore, what does it mean Hashem waking up? And why is that the main miracle? So the second paragraph. The idea is this: Dinei Adam hu Adam el Elyon. That the human being, Adam, is called Adam because Adam el Elyon, because we are an imitation of the one above. We are a reflection of Hashem. Adam el Elyon is actually a pasuk, and there's an interesting example of how Chassidus takes a pasuk and utilizes it in a way that is very different to its literal sense. Adam al-Elyon means I will be similar to the one above. I imitate the one above. I am like God. Adam al-Elyon means I am like God. Where is that? The source of that? That was a quote from Nebuchadnezzar. That he said, I'm just like God. Chassidus took that pasuk and says, well, there's some truth in there, not in his context, not the way he meant it. But I mean, it's actually from Kabbalah. The remember Pana the Maamar, one of the students of the Arizal, that the human being is a reflection of Hashem, and therefore, that the way Hashem operates can be understood by the way we operate. We are a reflection of the divine. And so therefore what goes on down here in our reality is a reflection of what Hashem experiences in a very different level. Atam Krim Adam. We Adam, here referring to the Jewish people, we have a direct relationship with Hashem. And so therefore what happens to us down here is reflected up there. Le'ele kegavna de l'sato. Like it says in the Zohar, what happens above is similar to what's going on down here. What the mood is down here in this world, that's what the mood is up there. What's happening in this world is being reflected up there. The spiritual realms and the physical realms are not just two different universes, but they are mirrors of each other, and they impact each other. And it goes both ways. That the heavenly realms are nishtalshal and expressed down here, but also what happens down here is reflected up there. Ubelashon HaKasav, like it says in the pasuk in Mishlei, K'mayim apanim apanim kein leva adam la'adam. That just like water, when a face is in the water, it reflects the face. So too the heart of a person is reflected in the other person. Which, this is from Shlomo Melech, what it means on literal level is that when you look into the water, you see a reflection of your face. If you smile, it smiles back at you. And if you frown, it frowns at you as well. So too, a person's heart is a reflection of another person's heart. The way you approach a person, the mood and the attitude that you give off to them will be reflected back to you and the way they feel about you. That emotions also work in a way like a reflection. That the emotion you give off is the emotion you'll get back. Of course, it has to go both ways. So it's not like you're totally in control of somebody else's emotions. That wouldn't make sense. But when you approach a person with positivity, with love and care, even if what you're saying is not necessarily an expression of love, maybe you're being harsh, but you're doing it with a feeling of love, it will be accepted that way, and it'll be reciprocated. Whereas when you have a negative attitude towards somebody, it will be reflected as well. That's the simple explanation of the pasuk. But in Chassidus it says, Leva Adam la Adam, the heart of man to man is talking about two different Adams. There's the Adam, the human being, and there's the Adam la Elyon, that is what we're similar to, the Adam above, which is Hashem. So the state we are in, our spiritual approach, the way we interact with Hashem, will be reciprocated by Hashem. He will interact with us the same way.
Does that have anything to do with like tracht und verzeihen gut?
Yeah, it's based on a similar concept. That our approach will actually draw down a similar reaction. V'lachein, continues the Rebbe, Kasha Yisrael hem b'matzel shel shina, when the Jewish people collectively are in a state of slumber, if we're sleeping on the job, if we're out cold, meaning if our Torah and mitzvahs status is in a state of sleep, because it's our Torah and mitzvahs in which we reflect Hashem. That's our connection to Hashem, is our Torah and mitzvahs. So here when it says that we reflect Hashem, that our heart is reflected in Hashem's heart, it's talking about our spiritual life, our Torah and mitzvahs. If in our Torah and mitzvah state we are slumbering through, we're sleeping on the job, we're doing the mitzvahs but autopilot, we're not doing them at all, we're disconnected from them completely. So then, then we also cause a metaphorical sleep in Hashem. He also falls asleep. Like it says in Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, I am asleep, which the Zohar says this is referring to Golus. The Golus is when Hashem is asleep, like not responding, not there. Like where's he gone? This is what Golus is. Golus is when you don't see the divine reaction, the divine response. He seems to be out to lunch, gone, where no response happening. Because the Jewish people in Golus are collectively asleep, we're not alert, we're not fulfilling mitzvahs in the fullest way. It causes Hashem to be asleep in Golus, that He's not revealed. You could argue it's the other way around, that because Hashem is not revealed, so therefore we're not so enthusiastic about our mitzvahs. But that's just passing the buck. That's just not taking responsibility. That we have our obligation as mitzvahs. If we're not doing it, so then we're pushing the Shekhinah away.
Someone has to
put him to sleep.
Someone has to be the one to.
So what are we waiting for? So sleep. It's going to get, the Maamar will go into this much deeper, but at the moment, Hashem sleeping, what does that mean? Well, just like a person who's sleeping is just not present, not functioning, not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So Hashem sleeping means that he's not present, not revealed. When you're asleep, things just happen without you. So it's like the world is happening without him.
But when we're asleep, we're also reconnecting to our souls, right? Like getting rest and
There's many different aspects of sleep.
right,
But as far as you're functioning in the world,
right.
nothing doing. So Hashem sleeping is the Golus state, when the Jewish people are sleeping on the job and are not connecting how we're supposed to be. So Hashem is also asleep. So with this we can appreciate what the miracle was, that Hashem's sleep was disturbed. That is not just a cause of the miracle. That's not just something that led to miracles happening, that Hashem woke up. That itself is the miracle, that Hashem woke up. Why? That's what it means, that when the pasuk says on that night the king's sleep was disturbed, which we said is referring to Hashem, the king of the world, his sleep was disturbed. That is tok v'shel nes. That is the real essence, the power, the main story of the miracle here. Ki al pi seder ishtalshus, the bottom line of the page, because according to seder ishtalshus, according to the system that Hashem created the world with, zman hagolus hu zman shel shina l'mayla. Golus, exile, is a time when Hashem is asleep. This is the definition of exile. That's what's supposed to be happening. Meaning, if the Jewish people are in exile, what does that mean? It means that we haven't woken up yet. We haven't woken up. If we'd wake up, then we wouldn't be in Golus. So if we're in exile, if we're in Golus and we're asleep, so that means Hashem is asleep at the moment. So too in the times of Achashverosh, this was the 70 years in between the two Batei Mikdash. The first had been destroyed, the second had yet to be built. So the Jewish people were collectively in Golus, in exile, which means that they were in a sleeping state spiritually, which is what led to the whole issue of Haman and Achashverosh. So, according to the system, the divine system that Hashem created the world with, this story happened at the time of divine slumber, when Hashem should have been sleeping because we were asleep. The fact that on that night, as the pasuk says, which night refers to Golus, darkness, in the night time, in the midst of Golus, the king's sleep was disturbed, the king of kings, the king of the world. That's the biggest miracle. What does a miracle mean? What's the definition of a miracle? What's the difference between a miraculous event and a natural event? Above nature. That nature is the system of the way things normally work. A miracle is an abrogation of that system, where we break the rules, that Hashem has gone over and above the rules of nature and made something happen that shouldn't normally happen. So, when the sea split and stood like a wall, that's not normal. The water flows. Water doesn't stand as a wall. So by splitting the sea, that is a miracle. That's going above nature. Here we're not just talking about Hashem going above nature. Here it's even bigger than that. Hashem is going against his own rules, the spiritual rules of the universe, not just the rules of the physical world, that water should flow and not stand up. We're talking here about the spiritual rules of the universe, and that is that when the Jewish people are collectively asleep in Golus, Hashem is asleep as well. He's not revealed. When there's a time of Geula, of Beis HaMikdash, Hashem is revealed. Golus, what does Golus mean? Hashem is exiled too. We're asleep, he's asleep. That's his rules. That's how he set things up. And yet, b'layla in the midst of that Golus, in the midst of the Golus, when Hashem should be asleep, because the Jewish people are in Golus, they're asleep. The king's sleep was disturbed. He revealed himself, and made a miracle happen there. That is really tok v'shel nes. That is the biggest miracle. If you look fascinating in note 17, down the bottom, the Rebbe says, "Relukut Sichas Chelik Yud Beis Amud 36." If you look at the Sichas It says an interesting thing. The shinui hateva delamayla hu nesa pele godel yosem shinui hateva delamata. That overriding the divine nature is a much bigger deal than overriding the world's nature. The rules of this world are one thing, but the rules of Hashem in the spiritual realms, that's a whole other story. And so for Hashem to break the rules of this world is a miracle. For Hashem to break the rules of the spiritual realms, the spiritual rules of the universe, that's really out of the charts. That's a way bigger miracle. And there, in that sikha, the Rebbe's talking about the miracle of Lamake Mitzrayim B'vchareihem. That when the threat of the death of the firstborn, the 10th of the 10 plagues, was revealed to the Egyptians heard that this is what's going to happen. And Paro was still being stubborn. So the firstborns themselves said, we're not standing for this. And they went and fought against Paro. There was a civil war broke out. So the Zeb Masha Nes de Lamake Mitzrayim B'vchareihem Shay B'Shabbos Lifnei Pesach Nikru B'Shem Nes Gadol. And that's why the miracle of the firstborns waging war against their own people, which happened on the Shabbos before Yitzias Mitzrayim, before Pesach happened, that's called a big miracle. That's Gadol. That's a big miracle. Shematam Zeh Nikra Shabbos Zeh B'Shem Shabbos HaGadol. That's why the Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos HaGadol, to commemorate the Gadol, the big miracle that happened, and that was the firstborn Egyptians fighting against their own people, to let the Jewish people go. Because that's a change in the nature of Kedusha, of holiness. That's a change in the spiritual nature of the world. Why? Why so? If you look at it just simplistically, 9 plagues have been predicted and have come true. 9 times already, Moshe has told Paro this is what's going to happen, and it happened. Now the 10th comes. There's a warning that the 10th plague is the death of the firstborn. So anyone with a little bit of seichel would believe that this is really going to happen. So you're going to tell me that Paro is extremely stubborn, and maybe some of his people are as well. But the firstborns, are they going to gamble on this one? Are they also going to? I mean, Paro himself was a firstborn,
Yeah.
but let's say he's crazy. Not everyone's crazy. So it would seem actually quite logical and rational that the firstborns who hear this threat should stand up for their lives and say, let these people go. But the Rebbe explained that here the firstborns represent the absolute klippa of Mitzrayim. They didn't just happen to be the firstborns. They were the power of Egypt, the spiritual power of Egypt, which is a part of what's called Gimel Klippas of Tameas, the 3 klippas that are absolutely impure and cannot be turned around. The idolatry of Egypt was first and foremost performed by their firstborns, and so these are the priests of Egypt, the absolute tumah and klippa of Egypt. That's who we're talking about. For them to fight on behalf of the Jewish people is actually not so miraculous from a logical standpoint. They want to save their lives. But from a spiritual standpoint, their spiritual source, their spiritual energy could never fight for Jews, could never go on the side of holiness. So for them to fight against their own people, for the Jewish people, is not a miracle in nature, not that the natural world is being overturned, that the spiritual world is being overturned. And that's an even bigger miracle. To want to save your life is one thing, but when you are the epitome of Klippa, for you to fight for the Jewish people to go free is the opposite of your existence. And so the big miracle of the firstborns fighting for the Jewish people to go out is the fact that these people who are the epitome of Klippa are actually siding with Kedusha now. That's a big miracle. Because it's totally against the grain of the spiritual rules of the universe. And that is the Gimel Klippas Tameis cannot be turned around. You can't convert something that is absolute Klippa. So So the Rebbe in that very profound sikha shows what's something that you would say, that's not a miracle. For people to fight to save their own lives, that's not a miracle. But the miracle here is that Klippa, that cannot side with Kedusha, is siding with Kedusha. That's an absolute flip of the spiritual rules of the universe. That's a big miracle, and that's Godel, which happened Shabbos Godel, the Shabbos before Pesach. In the note actually there, the Rebbe brings another example. The plague of hail. That it says that when the plague was finished, when Paro said, "Please stop the plague," and Moshe davened that the plague should end, it said, "Ubarad lo nitach arza," that the hail did not hit the ground from that moment. So Rashi brings two explanations. What it means that the hail didn't hit the ground. One explanation is that it stayed suspended in the air, which is the one that is more popular and well known. But there's another explanation Rashi gives. So one explanation is lo nitach arza means it didn't hit the ground, which fits in the words. It didn't come to the ground. It stopped suspended in the middle of the air. But Rashi says another explanation is that the hail disappeared. That what was coming down just vanished. Which is a cooler miracle? Which is a bigger miracle? For the hail to stay suspended in the air, or for it to disappear completely?
First think about it, you think it's suspended in the air. I'm sure that the answer is
Question is why?
Like, why are there two opinions here? Why there's two explanations? Either it was suspended in the air or disappeared, or whatever, this way or that way. What's greater with this way or that way? Also, the pasuk seems to say, "V'lo nitach arza," it didn't hit the ground. Like it sounds like it stopped. That's what the pasuk sounds like. So why would there be another explanation? No, it disappeared completely. So the Rebbe says a fascinating thing. The difference between these two explanations is the difference between a miracle that is breaking the laws of nature, or a miracle that is breaking the spiritual laws of the world. The laws of nature dictate that if a piece of hail is falling, it will hit the ground. Even if the hail stops, when we say, okay, the hail stopped now, it doesn't mean that it stopped in midair. That's going to keep coming down. There's no more going to come down. That's what hail stopping means. So for hail to stop in midair is a nes breaking the laws of nature. But for hail to disappear is breaking one of the spiritual laws of the world. And that is that Mishmaya Miv Yahiv, that from heaven things are given and not taken away. There's a Gemara that talks about one of the Amoraim davening that the whole valley should be filled with coins, and these coins appear, and then he davens that they should disappear, and they do disappear. Well, there's I think it was a Rechanim and Doisa who davened that they were poor, that Hashem should give them wealth, and so he was given the leg of a table, a golden leg of a table. But then he had a dream that in Olam Haba his table would be wobbly. He's taking from Olam Haba, so he davened that it should be taken back, and it was taken back. And the Gemara says that's a bigger miracle. To give, they give from heaven. That's what heaven does. Hashem gives, but to take away, that's against His rules. He gives, He doesn't take away, and yet here something disappeared. We know Hashem creates things; He doesn't make things disappear. But here He did. So, if the miracle was that the hail stopped midair, that's breaking the rules of nature. The hail doesn't float in the air. But if the miracle was that the hail disappeared, that's breaking the laws of the spiritual world. The divine rules are that Hashem gives and doesn't take things away, doesn't make things disappear. So that's an even bigger miracle. So that's the Rebbe's point here, both with the Makas Becheres. The big miracle of Makas Becheres was not that firstborns want to save their own lives. That's not a miracle. It's that Klippa should fight for Kedusha That's totally against the nature of the spiritual world. So that's a big miracle. For the hail to disappear, where Hashem's rules are, I give, I don't take away, that's breaking his own rules, that's even bigger. And so here too, Nod L'Shnas HaMelech, the big miracle, the Toikef Hanes, was that it's in the middle of the night, Golus. And that's the time when the king is asleep, because the Jewish people are asleep, and yet within that Golus, Nod L'Shnas HaMelech, the king's sleep was disturbed. He woke up, the King of Kings, Hashem, woke up. That's the big miracle. To wake up in the midst of Golus.
So when these spiritual things happen, it's not necessarily breaking the laws of nature.
What spiritual things?
When there's a spiritual miracle, like the king's sleep was disturbed, or
Right.
it doesn't appear in nature in any supernatural way necessarily.
Correct. That which when the Maril says this is the Ikar Hanes, the made miracle was the king waking up. That's not a miracle. There's nothing miraculous about a king not sleeping or having his sleep disturbed. But
And
we're
then
saying
also, like with Malchus Becharis, this didn't seem like something miraculous.
correct. The miracle was not that nature was broken. Nothing supernatural here. It's that the laws of spirituality were broken. That's a way bigger miracle.
But can be missed.
Could be. Yeah.
Has it ever happened besides this time?
I don't know. It's an interesting question.
What about Hashem waking up, or just
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Should we
Yeah.
do for freshman?
Breaking
No,
his
no,
own
no.
rules.
No, I mean like not the.
I mean, all the miracles that happen in Golus, Yutas Kislev and Yud Beis Tammuz, it's Golus, and yet there's revelation.
So it
Purim.
happens all the time.
I don't know. But are there other examples of Hashem breaking his own rules, the spiritual rules of the universe? That'd be an interesting
Well,
study.
you just said
with the hail and then the Pesach?
Yeah.
Well, Hanukkah, we also say Nes Gadol.
hmm
Spiritual.
Well, it was also like a Golus, even though the Beis Mikdash was there, it was during Golus Yavin. So the Rebbe ends this note 17 by saying, "Valpiza yumtug mashe belaylahu nodeshnas hamelech loy nestam ela tokveshelnes." So this we can understand why we refer here that on that night the king's sleep was disturbed as being not just a miracle, but tokveshelnes. This is the real main kick of the miracle. The main power and emphasis of the miracle was the king waking up. Why is that so unbelievable? The whole Megillah is a series of normal events that put together are amazing. But the king not being able to sleep that night is not any more amazing than any other of the amazing coincidences that happened, that were really not coincidences. So why is this called Toikveshelnes?
That was the start of the nest, though.
Well,
Until that point, it was terrible, and that was the change.
yeah, but why is that called Toikveshelnes? This is the most powerful part of the miracle was the king not sleeping. Because it's breaking the divine nature, Hashem's rules, the Teva Lamaila, that when it's Golus, Hashem's asleep. Hashem's not revealed in Golus. That's the rule. And Hashem broke that rule. Breaking that rule is way bigger, that's more powerful. He's breaking his own rules, not just the rules of nature. He's breaking his own rules. So this idea is taking us, like, lifting us in our sense of what a miracle is. We're impressed by nature being broken. That's what we are looking for. What about Hashem breaking his rules? Like, that's so subtle for us. That's so beyond it. No, that's way bigger. Much bigger deal.
What about the normal thing being big inverted commas? Like we're in Goddess, and then the idea is that we come out of Goddess. So what changes from one to the other? Like even one we're in now, like
So that the Maamar is going to have to tell us what woke Hashem up. What wakes Hashem up?
It's the sugar.
Mhm.
So they tell us-
Right. Yeah. So
So that's how we wake him up. That's what we need to do now too.
correct. Correct.
Can there be a lot of wake-ups? Or is it like, meaning every time we do something proper, it'll be like a wake-up, but then, or it has to be like a universal thing that we
So that-
mamish have to do something unbelievable.
No, there's the smaller vote of each person doing their thing, but there's a collective Jewish revival,
I think it's
Renaissance,
serious.
waking up.
Yeah.
Okay, back up the top, the very, very top line. V'zeh gam diuk haloshen. We can also see in this the expression that the Megillah uses is nod shnas hamelech, nod daika. It's not that the king woke up. It's that the king's sleep was disturbed. What's the difference between waking up or your sleep being disturbed?
Big difference.
Isn't by definition being woken up means your sleep was disturbed? Isn't
No, because you wake up in the morning when you've had enough sleep.
But you could have your sleep disturbed without being woken up in the middle of the night. You could just
No,
wake
but-
up for something that's internal.
but that isn't that being what woke him up? In the simple story of Achashverosh, what woke him up?
Because he was having thoughts in his head. So it was like you can't sleep because you're stressed. Or
Yeah, like he was disturbed. Why was Haman invited to this party?
He was anxious.
Anxious, yeah. So
The answer.
So as much as we blame other people for our disturbed sleep, but it's very possible that it's our own thing. So why is the expression in the Megillah, Balaylahu, on that night, Nadada Shnas HaMelech, the king's sleep was disturbed? Why does it just say that he was awoken?
Because it's external.
yeah, that sounds more external.
What does?
That he was awakened, wakened by something, as opposed
So
to
And the sleep being disturbed doesn't sound that way?
not necessarily.
Not
It
necessarily.
can appear, but not necessarily.
Could be what's going through your head and what you're worrying about, or the big crash outside. That's,
Sounds
So-
like it was a disturbed sleep to start with.
His sleep was disturbed.
if they came from somewhere else.
Also, it shows that he wasn't finished. Like if you get woken up, it could mean that you're woken up at the right time.
Mhm.
If it's disturbed, it means it's interrupted.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the Rebbe points that out. The lashon nada shnas hamelech. The expression the king's sleep was disturbed. Shashina nada ma'amelech. That the sleep was disturbed from the king. It's not the king woke up. It's that the king was in a state of sleep. The sleep was disturbed. The emphasis is the sleep was disturbed. What does that mean? This what that indicates is the king should have been asleep. The sleep disturbed means that the natural state, the normal state, what should have happened, the default was sleeping at the moment. The disturbance, an interruption, a force came to break that, to stop the sleep. The word nodad, nod the shas hamelech, like you say, a person who has been disturbed from their place, uprooted or moved from their place. Like nav and nod means somebody who's wandering and nomadic. They're moving on the move. So, what does that mean? You have a place. This is where you live, but something has happened to uproot you, and so now you're on the move. This is where you're supposed to be, but you've been pushed out. So the sleep has been pushed out. The sleep was uprooted. So the pasuk here is emphasizing in just a phraseology, the way it expresses it, that the sleep should have been happening and it was pushed out of the way. Why does it express it that way? It's not just the king woke up, it's that the sleep was disturbed. Ki zman hagolus hu zman shel shina. Because we're talking about golus, exile, belayla at nighttime, at exile. In the time of golus, that's the time of sleep. That's what should be happening. That's the normal scheme of golus. And the miracle was that sleep was banished, was knocked out, was pushed aside, and he was woken up. So there's an emphasis here in these very brief words in the Megillah, as we're explaining them al pi pnimius, that it's not just talking about the king of Achashverosh waking up, it's talking about the king of kings waking up. Not just waking up, his sleep was disturbed. Meaning, according to the laws of the divine structure of the universe, Hishtalshalis, the way things work is Jewish people are sleeping, so I'm sleeping. It's Golus now. And yet the king's sleep was disturbed. He woke up. So that's Tok Fashones. That's the big miracle. That's a major miracle. So if we can appreciate that the sleep being disturbed is a big miracle, but we still need to actually understand what sleep means. What does it mean that Hashem is asleep? So on that, the next ice, we'll do a few lines. So the Frierdiker Rebbe in his Maamar continues and says, "The bir inyan ashina lamaila." What does it mean, sleep? We understand sleep in our world quite well. But what is Shina Lamaila? What does it mean Hashem sleeping? So again, Yuvan Me'inyan Hashina Ba'adam Lamata will be understood by examining sleep down here. That if we understand our sleeping a bit better, we'll understand Hashem is sleeping because Mibsare Echselaka, because from my flesh I see God. But it's a pasuk in Iyov, which means, the way Chassidus explains this pasuk also, is that by examining myself, I can see what God is about. I'm in His image, so therefore I can understand Him. So let's spend some time looking at sleep and understanding what exactly is happening when we sleep. And by doing that, we'll understand what Hashem's sleep is. The difference between a person who's awake and a person who's asleep, down here in human terms, is not that there's any actual difference when you're asleep or awake in your actual self. You're not a different person, and there's nothing in you that is different. When you're asleep or awake, you're the exact same person with all of you. There's nothing missing when you're asleep or additional when you're awake. Even if you're asleep, your existence is complete. There's nothing missing from you. You are totally there when you're asleep. All your limbs are present, all your organs, every part of your body is still right there when you're asleep, and they're all alive, they're all functioning. And not only your physical limbs, but even your faculties, your personality, and your abilities are all totally there and present when you're asleep. And not only are they there, but they're actually functioning and working. Whatever you are doing when you're awake, you can do when you're asleep too. As you see clearly in dreams, all of your faculties that you utilize when you're awake, you can experience them when you're asleep in a dream. Seichel, Amidus, there's intellect in dreams. Maybe it's a different type of intellect, but there are ideas and concepts. You can have a discussion. And emotions. You could be scared in a dream, happy and excited in a dream. Your emotions are working, they're functioning. V'gam rotzim v'tainug, even will and pleasure. You wake up in a good mood because you had a good dream. You might not even be able to remember it. Or the opposite sometimes as well. You actually had pleasure in a dream, or a rotzen, or a will. You were trying to do something in a dream. You had a desire. You feel the desire that I want to do this in my dream. So not only are your feet present when you're asleep, but even your emotions and your intellect are present when you're asleep. And they're functioning. They're doing their thing. Even your will and pleasure are functioning. To the point where if you are on a high enough level, an idea could come to you, or a thought or a concept could come to you in your dream that is true, that maybe you couldn't even come to in your waking state.
You couldn't?
You couldn't. Sometimes it happens that you're trying to figure out a problem, a solution to a problem, and say, I will sleep on it. And in your dream, it comes to you. It can happen. On a high level, there are many chiddushei Torah that great tzaddikim had in their sleep. And they revealed them. And these were ideas they didn't have when they were awake. Reb Tzadok HaKohen from Lublin, one of the great Polish Chassidic masters, he has a whole sefer called Divrei Chalomus. Stuff from dreams. And what are his dreams? Well, his dreams were all shared. What were his dreams? They were all answers to questions, Chumash, Gemaras, Chedushim. This is what he dreamed about. The Friedrich Rebbe mentions, it's brought in Hayom Yom, that if you learn Torah in the day and you're occupied with Torah in the day, so then that's what you see in the dreams. You see deeper insights into reality. So not only does our intellect work in our dreams, sometimes it works better. Sometimes when it's unencumbered, our mind is unencumbered by the distractions of logical thinking of the day, we think broader. So the brain is certainly working. And the same applies to pleasure and will. What does that mean? That we said about seichel, intellect, that if you merit it, if you're on a high enough level, you'll receive seichel, ideas and thoughts in your dreaming state that are true. They're usable, they're useful information. So too with pleasure and will. What does that mean? That sometimes in a dreaming state, it's possible for an ambition to be revealed, a yearning to be revealed that you didn't know you had, that is good, that you can act upon. I mean, we use the term dream, I had a dream, like, what do you dream of? But it could actually be that you dream of something and you say, yes, I'm going to make that happen. In the dreaming state, you could have a vision of something, that a rotzen, a will, that you could actually act upon. And so too, the pleasure that you have during a dream can be so real that it is a real experience. You've experienced something good. So it's not just a dream to be dismissed. It's a real experience. But even if we're not on that level, our dreams are just regular old dreams. But you have to also admit, maybe on your level, maybe you're not having great revelations. Maybe it would be better for you not to write a book of your dreams and publish it. But But you do agree that in your dreams there are midas, there are emotions that you experience, there's seichel, there's ideas, conversations and words that come through, there's ratzon, there's wills and yearnings, and tainugan has pleasures. And these are in connection with real things. It's not real in your dream, it's only a dream, but it's connected with real things, real people, real events that appear in your dream. Masha'enkin, the Rebbe says in brackets, Masha'enkin in yonim diminim nois. Unlike the impossible, like an elephant to go through the eye of a needle, that can't happen even in a dream. Something that is completely beyond the realm of possible you can't see that in a dream.
I thought you can see an elephant going through a needle.
You have?
No, I haven't, but I'm just saying I thought that's like, you can have a dream that's like impossible.
You could have dreams that don't make sense, like I was in this place, then I was in that place. But to see an elephant go through the eye of a needle in a dream, that you can't. So all of our functions are working totally when we're in a dreaming state. So what's the difference? How are we different if we're asleep or we're awake? What has actually changed in us? If I'm unable to think and want and enjoy and feel in my dreams,
We can't think logically in your dream.
Well, there is some logic. Maybe it's a slightly different logic. But if my mind is working, I can have a conversation in a dream. I know what's going on in my dream. So there is some logic there. So what's the difference?
Control?
You can control your dreams. To a great extent you can. You can control what you say in a dream, what you do, where you go, to an extent. Like when you're awake, to an extent you can control.
I thought when we were asleep we were at 160.
So what's dead? That's what we're asking. What? If all this is still functioning, so
Yeah, but not.
It's not functioning really.
It's
I don't think you control. Whatever happens in the dream happens.
I mean,
well, whatever happens when you're awake happens.
No, but I can decide to say something or not say something, or
In a dream you can't.
No,
well, I think that
that's the dream, whatever.
I think that sometimes in a dream you can start to direct it, but what presents in the dream is
Same as real life. What presents you don't control, but
you're not confused. You don't walk into a school and think it's your mother's house.
but you're not confused in the dream either.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you wake up.
In the dream that makes total sense.
But it's your mother's house.
But in the dream you're not like, what's going on here?
but it makes sense in the dream.
That's what I mean, it's illogical, it's not logical. There's a level of logic which is just not functioning when you're sleeping. Because your mother's house is really Israel and it's really...
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this one comes in.
Right.
And it makes
So-
sense,
so-
but it's not really
so-
sensible.
So your sense and logic is functioning.
But it's not
But it's not the
functioning
same.
properly, like
Mixed
it's
up.
illogical, it's not...
Especially if you don't find it illogical in the dream, then it's not functioning. Because if we only know it's illogical when we wake up, and it's completely illogical, then in the dream our logic doesn't seem to be functioning.
Or it's a different type of logic.
You might think it's logical at the time, but it's not.
In the world of dreams, that's just possible. That's fine. In a waking state, it's not. So that's what the Rebbe is going to say, that it's the orderliness of a waking state, where everything has its place and every function has its place, that you lose in a dreaming state. The orderliness is gone. All the functions are there, but they cross over. So emotion and intellect mix in with each other. So it's not logic and emotion, like your emotion is mixed into that logic, so there's no order there. And that's what the Rebbe will continue, please God, next week to analyze.
Thank you.